Three ladies previously drew praise on social media.
Accused Caitlin Clark of stealing storylines from other WNBA players.
WNBA players once again disrespecting Caitlin Clark.
The three women who rose to stardom on the backs of Caitlin Clark. And mean-spirited coverage of Caitlin Clark.
They built their careers on Caitlin Clark's spotlight, and now they're turning against her. The trio of women behind ESPN's new all-female show rose to prominence during Caitlin Clark's record-breaking rise in 2023 and 2024. Their commentary during her games drew millions of viewers, helping them land lucrative contracts and national recognition.
The three women who rose to stardom on the backs of Caitlin Clark. Because remember, these three were doing the NCAA tournament halftime show, post-game show during Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise in 2023 and 2024. And then they parlayed that into huge contracts at ESPN.
The refs don't care. Her peers, the players, hate her, which is why I'm to the point where Caitlin Clark,
but now
all
the
she's
same
done
analysts
is be an
who thrived
advocate
off
for
her
these
fame
women.
are
She's come out and tried to
ridiculing
get
her.
them extra
One
bonuses
even laughed
and
off
more
her
money.
Olympic
They
snub on
didn't
air,
care.
treating
She's
it
come
like
out
a
and
deserved
spoke up for
outcome
black
instead of a
women
major
in the
slight.
sport. They
There's
don't
no
care. They
gratitude,
still don't
no
like her.
acknowledgement,
They're not going to
just
like
cold
you because
dismissal.
you are the
And the
reason
sting
that
runs
things are
deeper
moving
because
forward, and
Caitlin
they're
has been
not.
one of the
So
most
you coming
vocal
out and saying all
advocates for
these
other
things
women in
is
the
not
sport,
helping.
including black athletes. Still, she finds herself constantly shut out by the very community she supports.
The refs don't care. Her peers, the players, hate her, which is why I'm to the point where Caitlin Clark, all she's done is be an advocate for these women. She's come out and tried to get them extra bonuses and more money. They didn't care. She's come out and spoke up for black women in the sport. They don't care. They still don't like her. They're not gonna like you because you are the reason that things are moving forward, and they're not. So you coming out and saying all these things is not helping.
It's not just rivalry anymore. It's rejection, deliberate and personal. ESPN's new show didn't even mention when Caitlin was ranked 9th among guards by fellow players during All-Star voting, a snub that should have been front-page news, but instead it was ignored. That silence speaks volumes. From the media to players to league officials, Caitlin isn't just being overlooked, she's being targeted. And those doing it? Many owe their careers to the attention she brought to women's basketball.
Except it's hosted by the worst of the worst, hosted by the mean girls, the girls that came at Riley Gaines and Andrea Carter, who is so arrogant that she calls Jimmy Potero Jimmy. She told a friend of mine, well, I'll just call Jimmy and get this straight. She boldly claimed that the WNBA wasn't against Caitlin Clark, supporting Caitlin Clark being left off the Olympic team because she was unwilling to sacrifice her knowledge and integrity in terms of the game for marketing purposes.
The three women now leading ESPN's new all-female sports show owe much of their fame to Caitlin Clark's explosive rise in 2023 and 2024. Their presence on halftime and post-game panels during Caitlin's most-watched games turned them into household names. The visibility they gained from covering her matches translated directly into high-profile contracts and expanded roles at ESPN. Simply put, Caitlin's dominance on the court became the launchpad for their success. It's clear ESPN used her popularity as the backbone to build this new program.
The three women who rose to stardom on the backs of Caitlin Clark. Because remember, these three were doing the NCAA tournament halftime show, post-game show during Caitlin Clark's. Elle Duncan, Chiney Ogwumike, and Andrea Carter. The three ladies previously drew praise on social media and awful announcing for their diversity and mean-spirited coverage of Caitlin Clark.
WNBA players once again disrespecting Caitlin Clark.
Without Caitlin captivating the nation, these analysts wouldn't be in the spotlight today. But after riding the wave of her success, those same women are now sparking backlash for taking shots at her live on air. One of them went as far as mocking Caitlin's exclusion from the Olympic team, laughing it off as if she deserved it. The tone felt dismissive, even hostile. What makes it worse is the absence of any credit for Caitlyn's role in growing the league. Instead of gratitude, she's met with cold criticism. That's not commentary, it's betrayal. Despite using her name and legacy to advance their own careers, they're now trying to erase her impact. And this pattern extends beyond the media.
The WNBA All-Star Game. Keyword, star. I did not say stars, I said star. As you guys know, there's only one star in this league. There are only two players in the dump worth talking about on a national level, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. If Sophie Cunningham continues building her profile, she will become the third. But as of now, there's only two. The biggest story going into the WNBA All-Star Game is WNBA players once again disrespecting Caitlin Clark and ranking her as the 9th best guard in the league. Guess how many times the diversity trio mentioned this? The biggest story in the WNBA. Guess how many times they mentioned it?
Caitlyn has openly supported Black women athletes, spoken up for fairness, and worked to elevate the entire league. Yet in return, she faces rejection from the very people she advocates for. This isn't just sports drama, it's a message. No matter how much she gives, there are people who will never accept her. When the All-Star voting results came out and Caitlyn was shockingly ranked 9th among guards by her own peers, it was a huge story. But the ESPN show didn't even mention it. Not a word. The omission felt calculated, not accidental. A story that should have led the broadcast was completely buried. That kind of silence isn't neutral, it's revealing. A platform that claims to uplift women in sports is staying silent on its biggest star being sidelined.
All that Caitlin Clark has dealt with, being targeted, getting hit with all this racism stuff when all she's done is play basketball at a super entertaining and high level, GOAT. All she's got hit with is vitriol, hate, jealousy, and just being flat out targeted from the top down. Kathy Engelberg doesn't care. The refs just do her filthy. The refs don't care. Her peers, the players, hate her, which is why I'm to the point where Caitlin Clark, all she's done is be an advocate for these women. She's come out and tried to get them extra bonuses and more money. They didn't care. She's come out and spoke up for Black women in the sport. They don't care. They still don't like her. They're not gonna like you because you are the reason that things are moving forward, and they're not. So you coming out and saying all these things is not helping.
That's not oversight. That's avoidance. Caitlin Clark hasn't just been criticized. She's been targeted. The level of hate, jealousy, and even racial hostility she's endured is staggering. And none of it stems from poor performance. She plays elite, thrilling basketball, breaking records and drawing fans in record numbers. Still, she's been disrespected from all sides: referees, league executives, and fellow players. Rather than being praised for what she brings to the sport, she's been singled out and scrutinized. The treatment she receives goes far beyond fair analysis.
What did Monica do after Caitlyn put her in a new tax bracket? Start going on every platform she could and diminishing her and talking about her fans, diminishing her fan base, diminishing her ability to her personality by saying she's only famous because she's white. You know what a diss that is? Could you imagine if people came on this platform and told me, hey man, only reason you're popular is because you're Black? I'll be like, thanks?
It feels like an orchestrated campaign to tear her down. And then there's Monica McNutt, one of the show's hosts, who has arguably gained the most from Caitlyn's rise. But instead of showing appreciation, Monica has gone on a media tour minimizing Caitlyn's success. She even suggested that Caitlyn's popularity is based solely on her race, completely dismissing her talent and fan appeal. These aren't critiques. They're attempts to discredit everything Caitlyn has built. Rather than celebrating the player who elevated them all, they choose to belittle her. That's not analysis. That's personal. And
I'm glad to see that the mood at ESPN is vibrant. I'm glad to see the vibes on this newly polished turd are positive. I'm happy to see that the ladies on Vibe Check are celebrating their debut episode. Checking vibes and hating guys.
ESPN's new show, Vibe Check, kicked off with cheerful energy, singing, jokes, and lots of self-congratulation. But something important was missing: Caitlin Clark, Despite being the biggest reason for the WNBA's recent surge in popularity, she wasn't mentioned at all, not even in passing. While the hosts basked in their own spotlight, they chose to ignore the very player who made their spotlight possible. The absence wasn't subtle, it felt intentional.
This may end up being okay for the WNBA because they basically have created the Real Housewives of the WNBA, and they all hate Caitlin Clark because she's more talented. She's like the prettiest girl on the Real Housewives show who's married to the guy with the most money that all the other women hate because she has what they want. This is, I think, a sign that she should leave and she should go on and she should start her own league. I don't even think it's a very difficult decision.
At a time when Caitlin's name is dominating headlines, their silence was loud. This wasn't the first time they've taken aim at her either. One host, Elle Duncan, previously accused Caitlin of stealing storylines from other WNBA players, as if her success somehow comes at their expense. That kind of framing suggests she doesn't deserve her place in the spotlight, despite everything she's accomplished. It's a tactic that diminishes her role rather than celebrates her impact.
What did Monica do after Caitlin put her in a new tax bracket? Start going on every platform she could and diminishing her and talking about her fans, diminishing her fan base, diminishing her ability to her personality by saying she's only famous because she's white. You know what a diss that is? Could you imagine if people came on this platform and told me, hey man, only reason you're popular is because you're black? I'll be like, thanks. Then I get home and I'd be like, what did they just say to me? Wait a second, man. What you say? I'm only popular because I'm black. What about my insight? What about the research I do? What about the vast wealth of basketball knowledge I have from watching basketball for all these years?
And when these comments come from women who've built careers on the very attention she generated, it stops being commentary and starts looking like a coordinated effort to push her aside. Even Caitlin's massive fan base, which shows up to games, buys the merch, and boosts the league's numbers, was mocked and dismissed. Instead of recognizing the fans who fuel the WNBA's growth, the hosts appeared to look down on them. And when you belittle the fans, you're indirectly attacking Caitlin too, because her supporters are a major part of why she's been so transformative for the sport.
She boldly claimed that the WNBA wasn't against Caitlin Clark, supporting Caitlin Clark being left off the Olympic team because she was unwilling to sacrifice her knowledge and integrity in terms of the game for marketing purposes, and repeatedly defending the player assaults of Clark on the court. Those that are around her understand she's just really stupid.
That disconnect was crystal clear throughout the show's debut episode. Then there was the glaring silence around the biggest WNBA headline at the time. Caitlin Clark being ranked 9th among guards by fellow players in All-Star voting. This wasn't some minor detail. It was explosive news that had everyone talking. Yet the show didn't say a word. Viewers tuned in expecting real analysis, but the story was ignored altogether. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was a deliberate choice. When the most talked about athlete in the league gets publicly snubbed and the show refuses to cover it, it raises one question. Why are they avoiding it?
Her fan base too, because Caitlin's nothing without her fans. The reason she is who she is because people watch the game. She would just be another WNBA player if her fan base didn't show up and watch the games, buy the merch, and attend the games in person. So you can thank us too for your new lifestyle, Shanae and Monica. Off to the comment section. This one said, who is the target audience?
The double standards didn't end there. One of the hosts, Chiny Ogwumek, had to apologize in the past for promoting a racially charged hoax involving another player. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, no one apologized. No one acknowledged the role they played in pushing harmful narratives about her. That inconsistency is telling. Some athletes are shielded from criticism, while Caitlin is left to fend for herself. These aren't isolated moments. They're signs of a deeper bias. Caitlin has become the face of that inequality. What's happening isn't just unfair, it's exclusion disguised as commentary.
Accused Caitlin Clark of stealing storylines from other WNBA players and infamously held a moment of silence in response to Florida's Parental Rights in Education Act, which she said is called Don't Say Gay. So not only is she unattractive externally, internally awful. horrendous. Andrea Carter, who nobody knows, but they shipped her off and put her on College Game Day because they needed a sister to go with Jay Williams, Jay Billis, Seth Greenberg, and Reese Davis. You got to have a sister to cover men's basketball.
The backlash Caitlin Clark faces feels less like sports criticism and more like reality TV drama. It's as if she's the it girl in a scripted feud, like the standout cast member on a Housewives show that everyone secretly envies. But this isn't TV. It's real and it's ugly. Caitlin isn't being criticized for poor performance. She's being targeted because her talent shines too bright.
The WNBA All-Star Game. Keyword, star. I did not say stars, I said star. As you guys know, there's only one star in this league. There are only two players in the dump worth talking about on a national level, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. If Sophie Cunningham continues building her profile, she will become the third. But as of now, there's only two. The biggest story going into the WNBA All-Star Game is
Instead of rising to her level, some people would rather tear her down. The jealousy isn't about her stats, it's about her presence, the attention she commands, and the impact she's had on the sport. The most cutting example came when Monica McNutt reduced Caitlin's entire success to the color of her skin. She claimed Caitlin is only popular because she's white, erasing her work ethic, her once-in-a-generation shooting ability, and her influence on growing the game.
Elle Duncan arrested for DUI in 2013. I didn't know that. I mean, Jalen Rose, Elle Duncan, you imagine if I got arrested, they got mad at me at ESPN for saying I would not go, quote, at it in a pool with a woman that wasn't my wife. They got mad at me. I had to answer for that. I said, what are you talking about? I'm not. Get mad all you want, but I'm not.
That's not analysis. It's an attempt to strip away her credibility. And let's be real. If someone made a similar comment about a black athlete, the outrage would be instant. But when it's Caitlin, that same energy disappears. That's not equality. It's a double standard hiding behind false progressivism. Then came the claim that her Olympic snub was justified because she wouldn't sacrifice her knowledge and integrity for marketing. A passive-aggressive jab like that paints Caitlin as selfish, without a shred of evidence. It's subtle but powerful, and repeated often enough, it builds a narrative. Caitlin doesn't belong.
Caitlin Clark fans, the old NBA, WNBA fans didn't watch this type of stuff. That's why the league suffered, because they didn't support it. Angel Reese fans, all they do is race bait online and make up conspiracy theories about why Caitlin Clark is so popular. And so they won't be watching either. And Caitlin Clark fans aren't going to watch four women who have literally made a brand off of diminishing Caitlin Clark. So I don't think anybody watches this. I'm not even gonna lie. I think this show is probably off the air before the season's over, unless they do the same thing they're doing with the WNBA.
Rather than defend the player who's brought the most attention to the WNBA in years, they use her exclusion as a punchline. This isn't sports talk, it's image control, and it's designed to shrink her influence. Despite being the main driver behind soaring WNBA ratings and ticket sales, Caitlin was completely left out of the conversation. The same analysts who owe their platforms to her are now leveraging those platforms to critique and erase her. Viewers noticed, and many of them were watching because of Caitlin. The irony stings. A show that wouldn't exist without her is now pretending she's irrelevant. That's not oversight, that's betrayal. And the hypocrisy runs deep. These same ESPN personalities have taken bold political stances on air with no pushback.
WNBA players once again disrespecting Caitlin Clark and ranking her as the 9th best guard in the league. Guess how many times the diversity trio mentioned this? The biggest story in the WNBA. Guess how many times they mentioned it?
Elle Duncan once protested state legislation live on camera and faced no consequences. Meanwhile, Sage Steele was suspended for making a political comment about Barack Obama. So why is Caitlin, who's avoided political controversy altogether, the one being torn apart? She's not dividing people. She's not campaigning. She's just playing basketball. And yet she's the one taking the heat. That tells you everything you need to know about the media's selective outrage and who they choose to protect versus who they target.
Elle Duncan arrested for DUI in 2013. I didn't know that. I mean, Jalen Rose, L. Duncan, you imagine if I got arrested, they got mad at me at ESPN for saying I would not go, quote, at it in a pool with a woman that wasn't my wife. They got mad at me. I had to answer for that. I said, what are you talking about? I'm not. Get mad all you want, but I'm not.
She's only popular because she's white. She stole the spotlight from other players. That's the narrative they're pushing. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark continues to face an avalanche of hate, racism, and jealousy. Not because she's done anything wrong, but simply because she's exceptional. Just ask yourself, how many times did they mention her on that debut show?
She's only famous because she's white.
Accused Caitlin Clark of stealing storylines from other WNBA players.
All that Caitlin Clark has dealt with, being targeted, getting hit with all this racism stuff when all she's done is play basketball at a super entertaining and high level. GOAT.
Who have literally made a brand off of diminishing Caitlin Clark.
WNBA players once again disrespecting Caitlin Clark and ranking her as the 9th best guard in the league.
Not once. Yet their entire platform was built off the wave she created. These aren't just offhand remarks. They've built a brand out of belittling Caitlin Clark, and the silence around that speaks volumes. So if you believe the truth matters, if you think Caitlin deserves better, don't let their narrative win. Like, subscribe, and share this video. Let's keep the truth alive and make sure the real story is heard.